Hey everyone, it's the build-up show. Liverpool-Arsenal League Cup semi-final, second leg, probably. I'm Paul Hitchens, Sam Walker and Dan Club. Join me. We are live here on YouTube on Tuesday the 18th, 2 and a bit days before kickoff. And as it stands right now, the game is going ahead. We're going to have to live our lives as though that is true because obviously life's mad and things can happen at a drop of a hat, and there's no point us pretending it's not going to happen and hoping it's not going to happen, and then it happens, and then we've literally just not done the show. So we're going to go about it, but we're going to talk about that in particular. Just something I just very briefly want to touch upon before I dive into it, because I know I'm sure it'll be coming, but it's been a big topic on social media the last day or two. Is obviously DT, one of the contributors with Arsenal Fan TV. There's been a lot of sort of uproar around him and what have you, and I can't talk to it in a wider sense. I've worked with him a couple of times. Always got on reasonably well with him, and obviously I've seen a lot of people giving Arsenal Fan TV a lot of stick. Like, what I would always say is the amount of energy that gets poured into just having the latest thing to kick off about. If we all just pooled that energy towards, you know, like the morons who are running the country instead, my God, what we'd be able to achieve. But yeah, like obviously there's a lot of moving parts to all that kind of stuff, and there's no point in commenting on the ins and outs of all of it, and nor is it our role or place to do such a thing. But obviously Arsenal Fan TV have put a statement out. They are good friends of ours, Robbie, obviously, who owns Arsenal Fan TV. So yeah, do go and check all that out and try to refrain from having wild opinions on things without knowing the full ins and outs of stuff is what I'd say. But anyway, yes, the Arsenal game Thursday. Now there are reports already, Dan, that they're going to ask for it to be postponed. It's been covered in a couple of papers yesterday. They're saying it could be postponed as the Gunners struggle to raise a team for the Carabao Cup semi-final. And our good friend Leanne Prescott and our compatriot Steve Hoare both reacting to this. Leanne said, loaning players out 1 minute, potentially unable to fulfill a fixture the next, how the tables turn. And Steve commented on Fabrizio Romano tweet that Pablo Mari has completed a loan move to Udinese. Said you almost have to admire the absolute shithousery of Arsenal to call off games for not having enough players while simultaneously loaning out 3 players in this window. It would be very Arsenal, I think, Dan, for them to be the ones for whom the rules all of a sudden don't apply, because I've seen like Gary Neville's really got on a soapbox on this in the last week or so. There's been increasing calls to just kind of change the rules. I feel really uncomfortable around all this, because this is all the Premier League's fault. They should have made it very clear at the start of the season exactly what the rules are, been totally transparent, or as transparent as possible around the rules. Because what's happened is we've had this ripple effect where, like, I had Robbie from Arsenal Fan TV on a couple of weeks ago, and him going, well, your AFCON players shouldn't count, and injured players shouldn't count, and blah, blah, blah. And I went, have you had the game postponed yet? And he was like, no. And I'm like, yeah, well, I know. Well, I felt that way prior to the Leeds game. Yeah. And then when you experience...
That's what's funny. Yeah. You just forgot to listen to that show.
Oh, really? But the point is, like, it was when you start to experience it, you start to get a bit more empathy for the blah, blah, blah. The point is, if you change the rules now, it's just grossly unfair, because the world hasn't changed. COVID is still just as rife today as it was 2 weeks ago, or a week ago, or 3 days ago when games were being postponed. Yeah. The Premier League have left themselves in a very, very awkward situation here.
They have done, yeah. They made a vote for their own back, haven't they, in many ways? Because, like I say, they started postponing games left, right and centre, and it's just allowed other clubs to do so. And Arsenal obviously kicked up a massive stink when we had the first leg postponed originally, and it's come back to bite them in many ways. Certainly the fans, because the amount of fans that were calling us XYZ because of it, and you're only doing it because your AFCON players have gone, etc., etc. And suddenly they want to do it twice, and they've obviously did it in North London Derby, and we touched on it off air, like the North London Derby, they played on a Friday night, the under-23s. How they got that game postponed, I'll never know. It's absolute madness. And, you know, you mentioned there, the loaning players out. I think they want to get rid of Kolasinac as well. It's become the Wild West, hasn't it, these postponements? And people like Gary Neville are right in a way to say, listen, we need to get on with it. But it doesn't affect him. Like Sean Dyche recently said, let's all get on with it. Let's just enjoy the challenge. And he just had his game postponed against Watford later on tonight. So it's one of the...
It's like all those fellas going like, no, don't take them vaccines. They're bad for you, And then you've got the photos of them in hospital, like, you know what I mean? On the ventilators with the thumbs up. Like, you mean, it's everyone else's problem until it's your problem. Course, and then it's funny how everyone changes the tune when it starts to affect them and impact them. And that's, I mean, it's just a hypocrisy of the league all over. You know, it's like everything from, they ask for 5 subs to, you know, any when it comes down to player welfare and all this kind of stuff. And the problem is, of course, is that I always find that people who are liars presume that everyone else are liars too, and they often give themselves away. And this is what we're dealing with. Tom. You've got this in the Premier League where your Burnleys and your Sam Allardyce style managers are the kind of people who would take advantage of these circumstances as much as possible for any kind of gain they can get. So you've got no trust that people are doing things justly and fairly and what have you, and then you've got tribalism to add on top. But, you know, what I'm trying to say is I'm kind of sympathetic to Arsenal's plight here, but I also find it fucking hilarious given how the dog's abuse that Liverpool and Liverpool fans took 2 weeks ago.
The Premier League's biggest issue is that you allow the clubs to decide what the rules are, basically, isn't it? Because everyone's got their own agenda. You know, null and void is the big term we remembered in 2020. So, but the thing is, we've got to remember this isn't the Premier League. And every single situation that's happened over the last 5 weeks has been different. And I think that's got to be taken into consideration. If your training ground's getting shut down, like I know it happened to United, Spurs, Liverpool, probably other teams, but if your training ground's being shut down for COVID reasons and public health are involved, you're not lying. When you've got one COVID case that we knew about on Friday, Saturday last week, which means that as long as he hasn't got symptoms, he's going to be able to play next Thursday anyway, and there's no more reported COVID cases that I know of. I don't know about you two. From Arsenal, their training ground's open. They'd have an under-23 games and they're loaning players out. We're having a different discussion here. It's not the same thing. Yeah. And as the bitter, 100% biased, red-tinted Liverpool fan I am, last season we would have had every game from January till May cancelled if these rules were in place, because we had kids who are not qualified, i.e. Reece Williams, as adequate replacements playing every game. So this is the problem. But I don't see, I have no sympathy for Arsenal this time because the training ground's open.
Yeah, and that's it. And there's obviously a pathway that needs to be followed through all this. And again, it's clear as mud, isn't it? The real, you know, and some of it's just because we've not been through it. So again, it goes to that point of it's about how many players you've got available on that point. So, and I said this before, if you've got that amount of players go out because they're all driving in a coach and there's a coach accident and they all end up out with like knee injuries because of a result of it, you can get games postponed because you've got too many senior players out injured. COVID just means you get a brief explosion of players overnight completely unavailable, and additionally to that, it means you might have to shut your training facilities, which means the lads who are available can't adequately train and all that kind of stuff. But you're right, it's why I can't see this. I can't see this not going ahead. But the problem is that it's all set up for this narrative of because Arsenal are the club that everyone loves to hate in that regard, and they've become they're such a target in that regard that it will feel like it's the world's greatest injustice. And I'm not clamouring for Liverpool to play a weakened Arsenal team. I want Liverpool to play a good Arsenal team, and I want them to shut them up and beat them.
I'm not sure there's much difference between a good and a weak Arsenal team, either, if I'm going to be brutally honest. But just to finish on that point you mentioned in terms of the Premier League ruling, if you look around Europe, this isn't really happening in other places. So that's one thing we might have to look at.
The Bundesliga are being like,
really,
it's like play your children.
Yeah, Bayern Munich's bench the other day was like a kindergarten. It was full of kids like this, and the kids come on and did well as well by all accounts. So fair play to him, but the Premier League has definitely created a problem for itself here by allowing a lot of this to go on and a lot of it unnoticed. And all of a sudden we've got Arsenal saying, oh yeah, our fella's just recovered from COVID, can we have this game called off? It's a bit mad. But yeah, I agree with you. I think this game should go ahead. I think they've had long enough to get the ducks in a row now, and they're almost, like I say, almost laughing in the face of it by allowing players to leave the club even yesterday. You know, it's chaos, it's madness.
Well, that's exactly. It's like, I get it. I know clubs are trying to conduct their normal business and all that, but I mean,
what's the difference in 3 days' time? Yeah, so you know what I mean. What's the difference?
No, 100%, 100%. You know, exactly that. Just hold the deal off, and maybe they go, well, they can't get that loan deal. Maybe Udinese would say we don't want him in 3 days, or that might.
Right. They shouldn't be signing him. No,
exactly. And I get there'll be more to it than this, but it's hard. Because everything's so guarded and so secretive. I just agree. It's a bad look. It's a bad look for Arsenal to be having those things going on whilst trying to make that case. I remember like a random one of like Tommy Smith having his disabilities taken away because he went out and took a penalty in like a charity game or whatever before a game, and because he was physically, and he was like he was dosed up on painkillers and he went to have a neck brace and he had to take it. But what the point is, it's a bad look. If someone's going to look at it in black and white, and I said the problem is the court of public opinion doesn't help an Arsenal, and I like Liverpool in that regard. They are very quickly the topic of conversation for a lot of general football fans, and we suffered this last week where it felt like everyone's not asked about cancellations until it's Liverpool, and Arsenal feel exactly the same thing because everyone loves to talk about Arsenal Football Club. But it's it is a weird one. It is a very, very weird one. I'm not keen. I'm not asked for us, I don't know whether I'd want it postponed because I don't know where it goes.
Well, this is it.
There's the international break next week for the CONMEBOL and all the the Brazilians and all that kind of stuff. So Liverpool won't be happy or actively looking to play football matches in that period at all. And then I think pretty much every midweek's
you've got the Champions League, haven't you?
Until the game, until the actual.
The
final.
Premier League have been given permission to play their games in a Champions League week, but I'm not sure UEFA would allow Sky Sports to show a game at the same time as the Europa League on BT. So you're on dodgy ground again there. I don't see when this game gets played.
The thing that's the wildest thing that could end up happening here is Arsenal, all the kickoffs and all the things that have happened is they end up kicking Arsenal out of it after everything that's happened.
Oh, please.
Well, UEFA did it to Spurs, didn't they? UEFA kicked Spurs out of the Europa Conference League for postponing the game.
And they've obviously, because we had a bit of this 2 weeks ago, and the rulings were changed in so much as the reason like Leyton Orient were kicked out when they played Tottenham in the early rounds last season. The rules were different, but also because there was no gap between rounds. It was like round 3 and round 4, or round 2 and round 3 were a week apart, so there was no space to fulfill the fixtures effectively. But that's one of those mad things that might happen here, is that if they can't find a space to play it, but the problem is it's 0-0 at the time as well. So it's like, not even if we just nicked the goal, they'd be like, oh well, at least Liverpool won one of the game.
We won on possession.
But it's absolutely nuts, but it's mad where we're at. What we do know is Chelsea await in the final. They obviously made short work of Spurs in the end. I'm got a bit. I really would have preferred it to be Tottenham Hotspur, if I'm being perfectly honest. I mean, that's a real carrot to dangle. Just let's treat this as a normal game of football. With 90 minutes plus penalties or whatever away from a domestic cup final, whatever our opinions on this competition are, I'm not arsed now. I'd much prefer this game to be at Anfield because I might be in prime under the lights. A win away from a final. It didn't go off in the way we hoped it would in the first leg, Sam, and it'd be different going away for this one. But this is what the best of footy is: a winner take all game of football, no matter who's on the field. I think it's going to be a great game.
I think so, yeah. So assuming it goes out, also the dynamics of the game will be different. I think it'll suit us a lot more to now have to go and get a result, in that Arsenal can try and sit there and, well, it depends on who's on the pitch for them. I mean, if they do have to play an absolutely stricken team, they're going to probably do that and hope they can pull off what they did last time and Saka scores this time. But the truth is, in reality, they're probably going to play a bit more open football. And when Arsenal play things like that, they make mistakes. That's when they make mistakes. And I think we are primed to punish them. If they want to do what they did at Anfield, because they have to, then fine. I think, again, we can learn our lessons. And that's fine, because we were in no real danger of losing that game, were we? So I think we're in a win-win here. Mentally, Arsenal will be all over the place. If they're thrusted into playing a game they don't really want to play, in their minds, obviously it's going to be playing a part. And if the game gets cancelled, roll on Mo and Mane.
I know.
Assuming that doesn't happen, I'm
genuinely fucking hilarious is the possibility of them going, oh, Liverpool are just trying to enter a situation where they're working it until they get the best players back from AFCON, and then Arsenal get the game postponed and we end up getting the best players back from AFCON.
And Mo scores free.
Oh my God, couldn't even put into words how deliriously happy that would make me. It's just funny. It's really, really, really funny indeed. We actually got a comment here from one of our club legends in our Club Legend Discord chat, saying, would be interested in the thoughts on recent issues, including Arsenal first leg, being contributed by lack of time on pitch shared by our backup front line in December. Firmino was out, so no opportunity to get a minute with Jota, and Salah ever present, hardly ever subbed even, so no opportunity for anyone to rehearse the right side. Lack of rhythm, understandable in my opinion. Hopefully we're getting there now. I feel, Dan, a bit like Arsenal game last week was it like almost like a pre-season
Yeah.
friendly for this new attacking line, and hopefully just a little bit more time on the training grounds, which we didn't have pretty much, in the build up to that, and some game time on the field. We should be a little bit more fluid, if not obviously of the standard with a Salah or Mane.
Yeah, definitely. It all kind of conspired against that side in many ways, because I thought the first 15, 20 minutes were quite open. Look, I might be able to create something. Then as soon as they go down to 10 men, they shut up shop. And that makes it even harder for us to break them down, which makes our forward line look even more disjointed and even more out of sync. But we were learning on the job. And I think we've been learning that. We kind of knew we were going to learn on the job, because we alluded to it in the earlier show. We don't ever play without Salah and Mane because they're Salah and Mane and they're so good. You know what I mean? So we can't really blame Klopp for not giving these lads a chance together, because I don't think we'd want to see them get a chance together too often in big games. So definitely learn on the job, definitely more time in training. The Brentford game will help, and hopefully they're primed and ready to go a little bit together by Thursday.
Yeah, definitely. And again, there's just having a bit more to play for, I think, definitely helps in all that regards, and having a bit more drive, a bit of a point to prove, because that Arsenal game last week was so disappointing, Tom. You know, I think we were all so flat coming out of that game. Like, it felt really like Liverpool had hit a massive wall. We were in a little bit of a mini crisis. Yeah, literally. So all of those things should hopefully mean that Liverpool are in a much healthier situation, you know, mentally, physically, literally.
And we were all critical of Klopp. I was certainly. He's my absolute hero for what he is. But we were all critical, and rightly so. I think, he had to learn a lot from that game, and Dan's just smashed it there by saying, we haven't seen Minamino's been injured pretty much since the Leicester game when he scored his goal. We haven't seen Origi since Milan. Bobby's been in and out because of his injury. So actually, you're right. That front line, Jota's played every minute and doesn't know those guys as his partners. You're spot on. Throw the red card in, changes things again. What do? We haven't practiced that. So I think you're right. We've grown. That Brentford game really helped them. And it really helped in the fact that actually Jota and Bobby didn't have fantastic games, but we won 3-0 and they contributed in the next end. So there's still growth there from then as well. Going to Arsenal, their fans will expect them to go there and win the game. They will not expect to get knocked out. After that 0-0, they're on the mindset as, we can win this.
Yeah.
So pressure's on them a little bit as well, which again makes it a better game for us. When teams open the door, we generally take that opportunity and go through it. So I think this plays nicely to us now after what happened at the weekend.
Absolutely. Right, we're going to take a short break, but I've got a trivia question, which I in no way, shape or form grabbed very, very quickly as we were starting the show. The last time Liverpool knocked Arsenal out of the League Cup was on penalties at Anfield in 2019. But who scored the goals for Liverpool in that 5-5 thriller? Answers after this.
As another year comes to an end, we wanted to create something special for the Redmen TV viewers to sit back and enjoy over the holiday season. Armed with a list of every player with at least 50 Premier League appearances for the Reds, you voted in your thousands to create the ultimate countdown of the greatest footballers to don the red shirt since the Premier League began in 1992. So pop the kettle on, put your feet up and enjoy as we reveal your top 50 Liverpool players of the Premier League era.
It's amazing. It looks so good. It's a bit overwhelming, to be honest.
The best way to honor somebody or something that you feel passionate about, to do it in a way that lasts forever.
A wonderful spread of culture across the Liverpool fan base.
Well, every game that we go past, like, when we see them, we'll like give each other a look and then just laugh. Because like Robo sits next to us and like we'll look and be like, "Where's yours then?"
Yes, loads of amazing content streaming right now and upcoming on Redmen Plus, our Liverpool streaming service. A little bit like Netflix for Liverpool fans. So if you want more and to go deeper on Liverpool culture, or you want more stuff pre and post match, we've got more studio shows, but we've also got documentaries, features and interviews. That Murals Guide is amazing. That's coming out at the end of the month. That's on the 27th. That starts streaming, but to keep you occupied, a two-parter and a reaction show as well around it, looking at the 50 greatest Liverpool players of the Premier League era. There was about 18,000 votes, I think, tallied towards that one. So it's very good and it's very in-depth and should keep you smiling even if the Reds aren't playing. Right, I asked the question. The last time we knocked them out of the League Cup was the 5-5 thriller at Anfield. Who scored Liverpool's 5 goals? I think you're almost there. Go on,
Almost.
what have you got?
Well, Origi,
Yeah,
2.
Origi got
Oxlade-Chamberlain.
2.
Ox-
Yeah,
Own goal.
there was an own goal.
Who
Was
got it?
Chambers, Callum Chambers.
It was not Callum Chambers.
Holding.
Nope.
Oh, who was it then?
Like Gabriel.
Nope.
Murray.
Nope.
Who was
You're
it?
going to have to tell us then.
Left last January.
Mustafi.
Mustafi.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah,
of
Mustafi,
course,
yeah.
And the penalty, did we say
Milner,
this
was
one?
it?
James
Milner,
Milner,
yeah.
James Milner with the penalty. Yeah, absolutely. It was Nico Williams' debut that day. The starting 11, for those who care about such things, Kevin Kelleher, Joe Gomez, Sepp Vandenberg as his partner, Nico Williams, James Milner at left back, Keita, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Lallana as a midfield 3, Harvey Elliott, Ryan Brewster, and Divock Origi started up from.
And we
from
beat
the
Ryan
that.
Brewster.
And if I remember, he didn't have that bad a side out. They were all right, weren't they?
They had Martinez in goal, who's the best goalkeeper that they
Yeah.
better than any of their goalkeepers, and they sold him. They had Hector Bellerin, Shohdan Mustafi, Rob Holding, Lauren Koscielny, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Lucas Torreira, Joe Willock, Bukayo Saka, Mesut Ozil, and Gabriel Martinelli.
Wow.
They should have tore it apart, shouldn't
Should
they?
have.
You were doing it at one
Absolutely.
point, weren't they?
Yeah.
Slapped it.
Should have battered us. Right, yeah, if you got that right, you're an absolute genius, or just have got a better memory than these lads. That's what it is. Right, let's talk about the Reds then. Fitness allowing, and Ox might be the caveat to this, Dan. We just go same as Brentford?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I wanted us to go pretty much full strength for this little period of games that we were in, and that hasn't really changed. What that full strength looks like might have changed. Obviously, you mentioned the Ox situation. That looks almost certain to be one change that we have to make, unfortunately. I didn't mind the lineup for the first leg until it didn't work. And
Yes.
I think
Sending off, didn't it?
Yeah, I think the sending off probably changed that as well. Yeah,
We had a team, I think our team was constructed to really out-battle and outwork an Arsenal side that was going to be quite an open game.
Yeah.
We were going to physically dominate them. And then all of a sudden we were left with a well where we had all of the ball and then with no ambition, and that team was not set up for that all of a sudden.
Exactly, and that's one criticism that has been labelled at Klopp throughout his tenure, really, in terms of making subs when the game's changed. I don't think he's perfect at that, and I think that's one game which you'll probably highlight that.
Well,
he probably should have changed it, in my opinion.
Well, it's interesting because we had this chat on the Final Word on Monday, and it was Chris that brought this point up, was Klopp's actually, the lingering criticism that's gone the entirety of Klopp's tenure is, what does he make substitutes that impact games? And we were saying, I think he thinks his best 11 is capable. His 11 that's on the pitch is capable of winning the football match. He's got his break glass solution for a final 10 minutes, but to Klopp and his team, substitutes are just planning for the next football match in just terms of rotating, in terms of legs and fitness.
Unless it's pre-planned, like you're only going to do 60 stages.
Well, that's almost what I mean. Is that substitutes are basically are effectively pre-planned things that mean you're fresh to play the next game and the next game and the next game, rather than I'm going to make drastic changes to how Liverpool play. So it's an interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's dead right, and I think that's half a problem, to be honest with you, because, like I say, that game, in my opinion, was crying out for a Curtis Jones to get introduced relatively early and change the whole dynamic, because we needed someone from the midfield who's going to make something happen, and that midfield never really looked like doing that, did it? So, yeah, I think team news-wise for this one, I'd be very much the same. I think the likes of Curtis Jones, obviously, definitely in the shout, but I think Nico Williams did really well in the first leg when he came on, but I don't think this is a game for him to come and start. The keeper's probably the other one, just to say as well.
I mean, I do feel as though Liverpool have made the choice for the rest of the competition by putting Alisson in the first leg. The only way that's not the case is if it was just because Alisson hadn't played. Because
that's what Klopp said pretty much, didn't he?
Yeah, it was he needed to just get him out on the field and get him playing. And we actually saw the last couple of games he's been a little bit rusty. Arsenal that first half in particular, it was a little tricky for him getting the ball out of his feet and that kind of thing. And even it's. So there's a possibility of saying that you might see Kelleher come back in for this, but I wonder whether they just made the call there so they don't have to make it in the final and don't say, well, because what if he's the hero and he saves penalties to get us through to the final, and then you're saying, sorry, mate, Alisson's coming in for this. I guess the only we'll talk about Ox in a second, but just in terms of the bench from the weekend, so Kanate, Milner, Gomez, Minamino, Shimikas, Kay Gordon, Kelleher, Nico, and Tyler Morton. There's a chance Origi might be back for this. He was certainly, getting closer to first team training last week, Sam. But I think the smart money's probably on. It's that same pool of players to pick from the weekend, and in that regard, is there any maybe Kanate for Matip just because he's played
Well,
bit
yeah,
of football.
it's interesting, isn't it? Because it wasn't a taxing game against Shrewsbury, and he took Matip off, didn't he, just to make sure he was all right. It all depends on this is another situation which is probably a bit alien at the moment to Klopp, because he hasn't really played like a second leg and then had a game on the Sunday like this. Usually it's Tuesday or Wednesday, these games, aren't they? It's bizarre how
We're in the Europa League cycle at the
mad,
moment.
isn't it? Well, we are, aren't we? It's weird, and usually it's Wednesday, so he's had an extra day's recovery, which is great, but then there's less time. So I think he's absolutely trusting in Konate, and given where City are, it can work both ways. He can say we can't make any more mistakes. Or he can be like, well, I'd rather get to a final. We don't know where his mind is. So it'll be interesting to see if he plays Konate on Sunday and maybe goes again with Matip one more time and then gives him that rest.
Yeah.
The other one is Trent. I mean, I had people saying after the first leg when Trent had clearly only trained for like a day, he looked crap, blah, 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 whatever. Listen, Trent's playing his own game of football when he's fit. On Sunday, well, last week was it Brentford? He was ridiculous. We didn't even speak about that, by the way, on the podcast. He was amazing.
Yeah, he was.
Trent plays all day.
Yeah.
I think Robbo plays, and I actually think you probably go weaker on Sunday in terms of that Konate Shimakash sort of switch, because we can't really afford to mess it up this game. So you've got to kind of go this game first, then deal with the consequences afterwards.
And the good thing is that whilst yes, it's slightly weaker, this is not that's a while. It's not like throwing Owen Beck and
exactly,
and Billy Cometio in or whatever for
Brewster, like we were talking before, and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Costa Shimikas is rightly in contention for any of these games. He's rightly in contention for this game. He might decide, that it's vital to, on the balance of things, you might think we're more capable of beating Arsenal than we are of beating Palace. You know what I mean? It's you don't know. I don't think that will be the case. I think we would always preface this one. But I mean, the Konate thing, for example, is like we're not far removed from what's not a game that's suited to Ibrahima Konate.
Exactly. So
like I get it, you play him in Old Trafford because he's got the same level of hype, but he's got a bit more pace and he's maybe a bit stronger. Yeah. So you say, well, just get him to shut down Cristiano Ronaldo. But there's going to come a point eventually where he's good with the tricky technical players and he's good with all of these things. There's also a random show, like Joe Gomez comes off the bench last week. Is that just him being prepped so that he's ready to drop into this game? I'd be a little more on edge because he hasn't played a lot of footy, Dan, but it's not the most wild shout that Gomez could just be in for this game.
It's not, no. When you mentioned him being on the bench on the weekend, it was a name that sprung to my mind as a potential contender to start. I'd be surprised. I've not been overly convinced by his return to the side whatsoever, but I don't put that down to anything other than the fact that he hasn't played a lot of football for a long time, personally. I think we're quick to forget how good Gomez was previously. You see a lot of people linking him with a move away already, and I'm not sure we're anywhere near that. For me, it would be Konate if we were going to swap the Matip situation. You just said there, he dealt with Cristiano Ronaldo, and he said it like the most natural thing in the world, and that's a big deal for a 22-year-old who's just come to the country, you know what I mean? So I've been massively impressed. I would have started him against Brentford as well. I think his attributes suited that game. He didn't, and we were fine, no problem. But Konate is making a serious case for himself this season.
Yeah, and just in terms of, we've not got tons of options really, to be fair, and the Ox thing makes it complicated because one thing Ox just brought was he's not Mohamed Salah. It shouldn't even need to be said out loud, but what he does is what he's got is pace, and in the absence of pace, and this is the one thing we lacked against Arsenal. Now, it wasn't as though the game had lots of space for lots of pace. We actually needed tricky technical players, and we might yet require that again. But if we work on the assumption that there's no Oxlade-Chamberlain, I wonder whether they just go Kate Gordon, just have a go, because the alternatives are you put Minamino out there again. He's quick, but he's not.
Interesting you say that though, because when he came on at the weekend, I know he got his goal in bizarre circumstances, but he played well, and Brentford maintained a decently high line, hence why Gordon got his chance.
Yeah.
And I think Minamino was a threat in behind. Thinking back to the first game, before it got really, really, really condensed in their box, there was loads of times when both Henderson and Fabinho had the ball, but of course only Henderson gets criticised for this. And Minamino's on the shoulder going, play me in, and they don't. And you only really see this when you're watching the game live, because sometimes on the TV it focuses on the defender on the ball. But there was loads of times Minamino wanted to spin in and didn't get the ball. At the weekend, we did it a lot better. And doesn't he play the ball as well for Gordon?
Yeah.
So he could have got an assist.
I'm
pretty sure he did. He could have got an assist, and he scores his goal. He's got 6 goals this season. Like, we've all said that. I've said it. I don't think he's good enough for our system long term, but if it's a choice between Gordon and Minamino, I'm putting Minamino in for this game if Ox isn't right.
Dan doesn't agree at all.
I just think
ready to dive in.
He's just scored 6 goals and he was crap at Anfield, but I don't know. I just feel like a bit more space.
I fully get it. I completely understand everything you said. I'm with you, by the way. I don't think he's quite good enough to be a long-term Liverpool
100%.
player. For this game, for me, all I'm thinking is, with the Gordon situation, is he makes our front line look a lot more natural. So Jota is suited to either being down the middle or from the left.
Yeah.
Him on the right, I really wasn't convinced about.
Yeah.
Gordon is our natural right-sided of this, and then Firmino and Jota. And I think if we're going to get the best out of Jota and Firmino, I'd be going with Gordon.
Yeah, and again, I don't think Gordon's ready. I think it's too
No.
it's too early for him.
If this was Harvey Elliott, I think we'd be going Harvey Elliott. I think it's a
Without
very
a doubt.
similar sort of balance. I'm talking a year ago as well, you know what I mean? So I think we're in a similar boat.
Well, it's a good point though, isn't it? That, you know, again, go back to that game 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And like we've got kids playing and involved in that game. You know, again, you know, we're giving debuts to Nico Williams against Arsenal. We're at the business end of it now, of course. But systemically, I agree. I think Gordon suits it a bit better, and Minamino gives you what I'm kind of driving at here is, what have you got off the bench if you start Minamino and there's no Oxlade-Chamberlain? What are you left with?
Probably Div.
Well, if Div, I mean that changes. So based on the because look, if Divock Origi's there, he's on the bench, and I'm holding him back for that final 10-minute
when
charge.
he scores the winner.
Yeah.
Obviously,
100%. He's due one again. But again, if you've got no Ox and you've got no Divock, and you start Jota, Firmino, and Minamino, let's just say you put Minamino on the right to keep the other two lads more in their best positions. You're then in a world where you might need to chase the game, and you might need a 17-year-old child to come in and be the difference maker for you, and that's a big ask. Or you're doing something mad where then you're pushing Curtis Jones into the front three, which you can do. Or you're then starting to dig, or you put Nico Williams on the right wing, etc., etc., etc. It's I mean, it could just be Nico. That he might feel. And I'm not thrilled by this, but he's got pace. He's comfortable running with the ball. He's good in tight. He's got good close control. He might just be. Does he try and replicate Salah, or does he try and replicate Oxlade-Chamberlain?
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, I don't know what the answer is to that, but that's going to tell a lot about.
I think also Arsenal's. If the game gets played, and Arsenal haven't requested it, because there's a chance they request it and it gets rejected for whatever reason. But if they don't request it to be cancelled, Arsenal will have 12, 13 maybe players good enough to play. I mean, they didn't. I don't even know how many subs they made last time, but they're going to have no Xhaka. Cedric's clearly injured. Like, I don't know who else they've got. Really,
Saka went off as well in that game.
He did, but I don't know where he's at. If he's not fit, they're in deep trouble. But like, this is what I mean. It depends what we're up against here. Like, if we've got an idea, they've got 11 first teamers and a couple of kids on the bench. KD Gordon might get more of a shout because he might be like, well, they've got nothing else. Yeah,
exactly. And as Klopp always sort of plans, he'll put the weakest team out that's capable of winning the football match, because it gives you more to work with the week after and the week after and the week after. And you're right, if you know, it's like when you face those early round games and you're both sort of like complicit in it, I'm going to put a weakened team out, you're going to put a weakened team out, so we know what we can do. It won't be quite that way, but they'll have a clear idea. Arsenal, well, there's only so many of these lads they can play, so you're right, the overall level might lower sufficiently that you go, well, it's no problem playing Kate Gordon. And that sounds like I'm disrespecting him. It's not. It's just that he's a kid. Yeah. And it would be a bold move to chuck him in such a massive game of footy.
What you said there got us in trouble in the last round against Leicester, because I was walking down to that game thinking, okay, we're going to play a mismatch side. They've been out for 10 days, not played. Yeah. They're going to have a thrown together side. Yeah. I looked at the team news. That was their first Premier League 11
that they could have,
against a very much thrown together Liverpool side. No disrespect to anyone involved. And for 45 minutes, it looked like that. Yep. And that's why we were in such trouble. So we had to make them changes to almost balance out the fact that they'd gone so strong.
And that's the thing about why I wonder whether we'll do that again, where, again, with the start and Gordon is technically weaker in so much as it's an untested young lad who's not 100% into it. He's not got the experience to maybe carry a full 90 or have a really telling impact on the football match. But you've got a senior lad there who can up your level if you need to, maybe.
It's a shame he didn't get that goal.
Yes.
That is a game changer. I mean, I don't think it matters for his career. If anything, it takes the pressure off him maybe. But for this game, if he comes on and slots like that calmly, we're in 4-0.
And it's interesting because, that would be an interesting circumstance there because it will show a learning curve. You know, if he gets put in a one-on-one and he then does something different and scores, then who's asked that he missed the chance at the weekend because it was all part of him getting to where he is on, at the Emirates. But fascinating stuff, certainly. Do let us know in the comments what you think they're going to do. I just want to draw people's attention because Chris has just texted me to tell me this has happened. Our Mo Salah Best in the World t-shirt has just gone live over on redmenmerch.com, literally right now. So yeah, if you want to celebrate the best player in the world in the face of the FIFA Pro Best 11 snubs, them gobshites can get in the bin and you can proudly wear a Mo Salah Best in the World t-shirt, available right now on redmenmerch.com. Go and check it out. But yeah, what do we think the score's going to be? Any ideas?
Yeah, I'll say 3-1 Liverpool. Banking on that more open game that we spoke about, because like I touched upon earlier, I thought we were the better side 11v11, and I think it'll stay that way. These are going to be weak, as we know. We go 2-0 up, they nick one, we kill it.
See, I think 2-0 because I think Saka was the standout player on the pitch going forward. Barring him, they were poor. They really were. Lacazette was busy, but not in front of goal. I can see us winning 1-2-0. I'll stick with 2-0. I just feel two clean sheets on the run and Matip and Van Dijk are looking sharp again.
It will depend on the quality of team Arsenal are able to put out here. I agree on this, is because look, we are not, with no Salah and Mane, we are not the Liverpool that we are, which again I keep considering. I think we're in the best 3 football clubs on the planet right now. And that's where we're at when we're close to our full strength. I think our level's been pulled down without them to a team that would be fighting normally from the start of the season for 3rd, 4th, 5th or whatever in the league. And it's whether, but Arsenal at their very best are that. Yeah, they are at the best the 4th best team in the Premier League. So if they've been undercut and we've been undercut, I think our level is still above them, but it depends how far undercut. They've got the crowd behind them, all that kind of stuff, which will aid them. It's a tricky one. I don't think we'll wipe the floor with them. I think it'll be a 2-1 or a 2-0 rather than us going boom, boom, boom. But look, if you get a couple of goals in the first half and you could run riot against them.
You could, yeah.
Who knows, indeed. Right, let us know in the comments. If you're live here on YouTube, use the live comments box and put your score predictions and your starting 11s in there as well. And yeah, we will be back with a watch-along on Thursday night. Make sure you tune in for that. The starting 11 prediction show will be going live before then. There'll be an opposition preview over on Redmen Plus as well. Plenty to keep you occupied in the build-up to a game that might never happen. Anyway, thank you so much to Dan. Thank you so much to Sam, and of course thank you to everyone who's joined us live, and all of you of course either watching or listening after the fact. Do please go and check out Redmen Plus. I went very Canadian there, that was a bit weird. Oots Redmen Plus, because we've got you covered on all aspects of the mighty Reds, and yeah, we hope to see you over there. Ta-ra.
Hey guys, the January transfer window is open, so I'm sure you guys are looking for the latest news. Who's coming to Liverpool, who's going, and all that kind of stuff. Well, we've got you covered on Redmen Plus. Every week in January, we'll have Neil Jones in our studio live for Journo Insight. He will be telling you the comings, the goings, and everything you need to know for this January. How do you watch it? I hear you ask. Very, very simple. Head on over to the redmentv.com and sign up for Redmen Plus.